Welcome to this brief tutorial on working with an educational interpreter. This training will familiarize you with working with an educational sign language interpreter for deaf and hard of hearing students in an online setting. The information in this tutorial was prepared by the TUSD Exceptional Education Department. Let's start out with some terminology. ASL is American Sign Language. Deaf with a capital D is a cultural identity. Deaf with a lowercase d is a categorical term for having a profound hearing loss. Hard of hearing is both an identity and category of hearing loss, which is often abbreviated HH. Hearing impaired is a category of eligibility or services under IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This term is not used to describe people. If you are unsure of which term to use for a student, simply ask the student. DHH is the general term used to describe the students who receive hearing impaired or HI services. This term is used when discussing students and preferences are unknown. You will see this term throughout the presentation. Let's look at some of the many misconceptions about American Sign Language and deaf people. Myth: ASL is universal. Fact: it is the predominant language used by the American deaf community, but there are over 100 different sign languages worldwide, not including dialects. However, ASL is the foundation of American deaf culture. Myth: ASL is English on the hands. Fact: ASL has a unique syntax and grammar that does not follow English. It includes hand gestures and facial expressions. In fact, 90% of the language is facial expressions. Myth: all deaf people can lip read. Fact: among profoundly deaf individuals, the most skilled lip readers only understand about 30 to 40% of the spoken language. Lip reading requires extensive training, and since all mouths look different, it is impossible to train to 100% comprehension. Many people confuse the roles of interpreter and translator. In fact, these are different tasks that involve different language. Interpreting is converting a spoken language or signed language into another language in the context of environment or setting, dynamics, and culture. Sign language is not universal. Just like spoken languages, countries and/or cultures have their own sign language. Translating is the detailed changing of a written language into another written language. ASL has no written form and therefore cannot be translated. So then, what do educational interpreters do? Educational interpreters have a range of functions they perform within their role in TUSD. Interpreters provide communication access for ASL and non-ASL users. This involves signing what is presented in spoken English and voicing what is presented in ASL. Interactions happen at a variety of levels, including with teachers, peers, and other staff. Therefore, the interpreter must always be ready to convey a spoken or signed message or interpret video clips with or without captions. Interpreters participate in IEPs as related service providers by providing data and expertise on students interpreting consumer skills, while another educational interpreter interprets the content of the meeting for the student. Educational interpreters also participate in or interpret 504 meetings for students as necessary. Educational interpreters make content and curriculum accessible by assessing student linguistic need and modifying their outgoing language. They expand on the meaning of a concept when one sign is not enough. They also introduce new sign vocabulary. Their approach to interpreting is guided by the goal and objective of the lesson. Interpreters advocate for student accommodations. They read each IEP or 504 plan on their caseload to become familiar with each student's individual needs. Students can request preferred interpreters as well as decline interpreting services for IEP documented activities. Interpreters foster independence and self-determination by offering guidance and encouragement to students regarding interpreting services. Just like teachers, interpreters need to prepare for classes. They collaborate with teachers to understand the content and objective of the lesson. They also consult with other interpreters to ensure consistency of vocabulary choice. They research standardized sign vocabulary from trusted sources. During downtime in class, interpreters may read assigned material. To improve their skills, interpreters may watch videos of highly skilled or deaf signers to get ideas of how to present material. Interpreting is not simply a word for sign, sign for word process. It requires physical exertion and mental stamina. Interpreters perform many tasks at the same time. Interpreters must listen to all incoming messages, verbal and nonverbal. They check for their own comprehension of the incoming message. They pay attention to the environment and the dynamics of the interaction. They analyze messages for meaning and use closure skills to predict the next incoming message while planning the outgoing message. Interpreters make decisions about what sign or word best conveys the intent and meaning. They also make decisions about accessibility and logistics. With multiple students, interpreters adjust the interpretation to the most linguistically accessible target language. This could mean interpreting the message multiple times for each student's need. Nonverbal communication is an important part of culture. Intonation and attitude are included in the interpreting process. Interpreters must monitor the outgoing message to ensure correct signs or proper English is used and correct any errors made. They also check for understanding from all parties and monitor their signing space through their video. Because ASL and English are different languages from different cultures, interpreters must find common ground between the two. Cultural mediation is a large part of what interpreters do. Unfortunately, many people think interpreters are aides or tutors. However, this is not true. The following is a list of tasks educational interpreters working in TUSD do not do. Tutor, monitor or supervise students. Teach, troubleshoot personal amplification or technology. Speak on behalf of the deaf or hard of hearing student. And interpret for deaf parents, visitors, or employees. Educational interpreters are not generally trained to perform these tasks. In performing these tasks, they are not able to perform their primary function, which is providing communication access for DHH students. Educational interpreters work for the district as a whole, not school sites individually. Educational interpreters work under exceptional education. They are itinerant and may be assigned to multiple sites during the day. Schedules are determined by the supervisor in collaboration with the interpreting team and may change daily depending on the need in the district. You may have different interpreters each day. The educational interpreter supervisor manages requests and assigns interpreters. The supervisor also coordinates interpreting services for students for their IEP or 504 meetings. Anyone can request an educational interpreter by navigating to the Office 365 form using the link shown, or by accessing the QR code using a reader app on your phone. The form is simple and can be completed using any computer, tablet, or smartphone. Students should be encouraged to submit their own requests when appropriate. Additionally, if you need to pull a student for testing, you will need to make a request for interpreting services. A paper version of the form is available upon request. When you have an interpreter in the classroom, there are behaviors and actions you can expect. Once you understand the reasons for these, working with an interpreter will go much more smoothly. Upon starting a live online lesson, acknowledge the interpreter and give students time to pin the interpreter. The interpreter or interpreters might be new to the students. The online lesson may be teamed. Making the interpreters co-hosts will allow access to more features that assist the interpreters, such as multi-pinning. Give the interpreters time to switch and allow the students time to focus on the new interpreter. The support interpreter will keep his or her camera off until switching. Turning on his or her camera will signal to the students that there will be a change of interpreter. Speak at your natural pace when working with an interpreter. Fast talkers are just as difficult as slow talkers to interpret for. If you are a fast talker, the interpreter may stop you periodically to catch up. You do not need to slow your speech down or speak in phrases. In order to interpret, the interpreter will need to process the entire message. Often the subject of the message is at the end of the English sentence. The same is true when an interpreter is voicing for a student. The interpreter will wait for the topic before beginning to voice. When interacting with a DHH student, make sure to address him or her directly, even though they are not looking at you. Never say, "tell him" or "ask her." The classroom teacher manages the flow of instruction. Teachers lead the lessons while the interpreter interprets. They also manage the classroom activities. To assist the interpreter and the DHH students, teachers should make sure participants are speaking one at a time and repeat students' comments as necessary. Any behavioral disruptions will be interpreted, but discipline of students should come only from the teacher. Accommodations listed on students' IEPs must be provided by the teacher. The interpreter can assist with resources to facilitate accommodations. It is the teacher's responsibility to ensure lessons are not inherently discriminatory by always making sure videos are captioned, that visual aids are used, and auditory-based attention-getting signals are minimal. You may need to provide guidance to students on pinning the interpreter, starting and stopping students' video, or muting and unmuting microphones. If there is something to communicate to a student's family, the teacher should initiate. The interpreter should only have incidental interactions with parents and guardians outside the IEP or 504 meeting. Teachers should also communicate student progress and achievement with the teacher of the deaf or hard of hearing student. Teachers plan classroom activities and schedules. They do not supervise or manage interpreter schedules. All requests for interpreting services must go to the educational interpreter supervisor. Do not coordinate services directly with the classroom or lesson educational interpreter. Here are some tips for working with educational interpreters online. Collaborate with the interpreter by providing him or her prep materials along with the goal and objective for the lesson. Include any new vocabulary. Make lessons as visual as possible and manage classroom discussions so that students are speaking one at a time. Repeat or paraphrase student comments and questions, and give the DHH student time to focus on who is speaking. Periodically check with that student for understanding, and utilize the chat feature to check in with the student or interpreter. You should consult with the teacher of the deaf student to find additional strategies for working with DHH students in an online setting. Now, let's review a few frequently asked questions. Why are there two interpreters? Two interpreters will be assigned in any of the following scenarios: when classes run longer than 45 minutes, the subject is dense, or one interpreter needs support for whatever reason. When two interpreters are assigned, they take turns interpreting about every 20 minutes or so. The interpreter who is in the support role, or is not actively interpreting, will provide the active interpreter with missed information or quickly look up a sign for a concept that is new to the team. Teaming or co-interpreting also helps reduce the risk of repetitive motion injury, which plagues many interpreters. Some educational interpreters are paired with more experienced interpreters for mentoring and skill building. Here are some solutions to frequent issues which can arise during a lesson via video conferencing. If the interpreter freezes, be patient and give the system 10 to 15 seconds to unfreeze before investigating further. If the interpreter is kicked out of the meeting due to connectivity issues, allow time for the interpreter to log back in. In the meantime, use the chat feature to communicate with the DHH student. If the student cannot see the interpreter, the student may need to log off and log back in. Communicate this via the chat feature. The student may need to pin the interpreter using the three dots icon at the top left corner of the interpreter's video. For more information on using Zoom with DHH students, please take course number 15356 in True North Logic titled Zoom, the ADA, and You. Since interpreters are working remotely, internet speeds and devices may affect service. It is important to maintain communication with the DHH student and/or the interpreter when there are problems. If you are having ongoing tech issues with the interpreter's video, contact the educational interpreter supervisor, as we may need to switch interpreters or provide another solution. Another frequently asked question is, how do I get an interpreter for a meeting with a deaf parent? Community interpreters must hold a license from the state of Arizona. Educational interpreters are not required to hold such a license under the Arizona Department of Education rules. Contact your principal and have him or her request a licensed ASL interpreter through Meaningful Access. Educational interpreters who happen to hold a license should not be pulled from students to interpret for deaf parents, visitors, or community members. If you have any questions or would like more information, please contact Mary Wisby at mary.wisby@tusd1.org, or you may text her at area code 520-276-6223. The Educational Interpreting Services Department looks forward to working with you. Congratulations! You have completed the video portion of this training module. Now, pass the quiz under topic number 2 to receive credit for completing this course.